My name is Sheri Kling, and on this Deeper Rhythm channel, I talk about how to listen to the deeper rhythm of your own life, and mostly talk about dreams, spirituality, and transformation, but, occasionally may dip into some other topics as well. Today I have on my big sweater because it's cold in Tennessee, and I think I have fixed the autofocus problem that I had on a couple of previous videos, so I think we are good to go. So the question we're exploring today is, what is spirituality and why should I care? So this question was submitted by my friend Jazz, who basically asked, what is spirituality? What can it do to improve your life? And how is it different from being religious? So let me begin by first saying that I agree with author David Perrin, who writes that spirituality is an intrinsic part of the human person. Now, because spirituality is part of our human nature, he says that it does not spring from, Christian theological categories or even from history, but rather from the capacity for spirituality in every individual. He says that it involves the integration of all aspects of life into a unified whole, and he also believes that spirituality is part of what it means to live an authentic life. And so an authentic life, he says, is a life that has an overall spirit of goodwill and refers to a commitment to look critically at oneself and at one's relationships, and also to have an openness to question all aspects of living, basically. And he says that we do all this so that we can deepen our self-appreciation and deepen our self-giving capacity to others. So this kind of authentic spirituality includes both a capacity for transcendence and self-transcendence, which basically means that we are then able to expand our awareness beyond just the narrow details of my personal life, to include what transcends my personal life and includes all life, or all human life, or all beings. And so we could also talk about spirituality as the inner meaning of human experience, or maybe as the search for what is sacred, when we use the word sacred to refer not necessarily to a divine being, but to refer to what we regard with reverence or see as ultimate. So I define spirituality in three ways. First, it's a way of perceiving ultimate reality, meaning that reality that is at the base of our very existence. Spirituality is also a set of tools or techniques to approach that ultimate reality. And third, it's the hope itself of being in some kind of communion or in some kind of transforming relationship with this ultimate reality as a way of navigating the human experience. In other words, that to be, I use these tools and techniques because I have hope that by being in relationship with this ultimate reality, or in communion with this ultimate reality, that I can better navigate the human experience and live a better human life. So at its most basic, I think the spiritual part of humans has to do with meaning, with discovering or creating meaning about life or about the events in our lives. After all, if we're just a bundle of cells with a brain, or nothing more than thinking meat sacks that are only here to eat, procreate, and create human culture for the moment, then we wouldn't look for meaning in anything. So if there's nothing more to our lives than our day-to-day existence, if there's no larger story or reality to which we can belong or of which we are a part, then why would we even begin to ask what our purpose is or why we're on this earth? And that is kind of the perennial human question that people have asked for millennia. But we humans are in fact a species of meanings, of narratives, of story, and that is the way we are wired. And so we seek to see ourselves as part of something larger, to belong to a meaningful narrative, not to be just on the receiving end of a lifelong parade of random acts of suffering with an occasional period of joy thrown in for good measure here and there. In the preface to Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, Gordon Allport described Viktor Frankl's experience as a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps. His entire family, except for his sister, had been killed by the Nazis, and there was Frankl, every possession lost, every value destroyed, suffering from hunger, cold, and brutality, hourly expecting extermination. How could he find life worth preserving? So Frankl came out of that experience believing that humans have an innate drive to pursue meaning, which is our way of making larger sense of our suffering. That would otherwise seem senseless, right? He said, to live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. Now, no one can tell us what our lives mean. We have to determine that for ourselves. Each of us determines that in our own life. As Nietzsche wrote, he who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. Now, Frankl believed that even within our world that is full of suffering, humans have the capacity to transcend our suffering, to transcend our situations, and discover what he called an adequate guiding truth that gives us a reason to live. Now, what is the difference between religion and spirituality? Well, first, I think we can say that most all the major religions began with people that had foundational experiences with what has been called the numinous. So, for example, Abraham hears a voice that calls him out from his community to follow a journey toward a promised land. Moses sees a burning bush that called him to his journey to free his people. Jesus has a vision at his baptism where he sees the Spirit of God descending upon him and hears a voice that says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Buddha sits beneath a Bodhi tree and experiences enlightenment. These are all encounters with the numinous. Now, in fact, the mystical tradition of every religion focuses on this kind of inner experience of divine reality. And such mystical experiences can be life-altering, transforming, even sometimes shattering. But people who have had them often describe a sense of unity with the entire world and a kind of sacred authority in those experiences that led them to feel as if they had encountered something ultimately true and whole. In fact, Carl Jung believed that we had an inner drive for wholeness in the same way that we have drives for food and for sex. He believed that historically, groups of people living together shared a view of the world that he called a religious frame of reference that described for them how the world had a wholeness to it that then fostered that same wholeness in the individual person. And people with that kind of religious outlook or religious frame of reference then see themselves as part of the whole, as connected to the world and other beings, and as being in relationship with everything. They see a kind of unity to experience that is deeper than the fragmentation that is apparent on the surface of life. Now, when we lose that kind of outlook, we struggle to feel like we're part of anything, and then we question whether our lives have any kind of meaning at all. And this is our modern secular dilemma. Now, there has been a long tradition of perennialism, which talks about recurring themes in the world's major religions and philosophies as well. And Richard Rohr, who I love, writes that each religion says three things in its own way. First, it says that they say that there is a divine reality underneath and inherent in the world of things. Second, that there is in the human soul a natural capacity, similarity, and longing for this divine reality. And third, that the final goal of existence is union with this divine reality. Now, when I talk about divine reality, I'm not talking about something supernatural that is unrelated to the world. I'm talking about the divine reality that is what brings life and realness to everything in the world. That primordial flow of energy at the base of life, which I've talked about in previous videos, that is the reason why there is something at all rather than nothing. This is the energy that brings vitality, dynamism, and creative possibilities to every moment of our lives. So when I talk about God, I believe strongly that God, that this divine reality, this ultimate reality, and the world are mutually immanent in each other. God is in the world, and the world is in God. I believe that the world is in God, but that God is not confined only to the world, but also transcends the world. And this is a worldview that's called panentheism. Now, I don't equate spirituality and religion. In fact, I believe that spirituality can be vibrant in a person's life, even if they are not connected to any kind of religion. I see religion as a collection of texts, rituals, and beliefs that are meant to help its followers recreate for themselves in community the original spiritual experiences that the religion is based on. Now, to me, religion is a tool that has a role and a function. It's a container within which we can understand numinous experience. Now, faith, on the other hand, is that outlook that we have that allows us to trust the universe, to move with the flow of life and find our own meaning within that life. And that is then a spiritual side of us. That is our spiritual life. So this is why I believe we should care about spirituality, because it helps us to connect our own individual lives to the greater life that we live within, to see ourselves as whole within the wholeness of the world, and to be in communion with the very heart of the universe. And when we can experience life in this way, in this authentically spiritual way, we can then know that we matter, that we belong, and that we can experience positive change, even within a world of suffering, loss, and death. We can feel all aspects of our lives to be one integrated whole, to be of a piece of the same fabric. And when we see ourselves as part of a larger story and a deeper flow, then we know our place in the whole scheme of things. And that brings us joy, contentment, peace, and harmony. That's how I would answer the question, what is spirituality and why should we care? So if you'd like to dive deeper with me into various topics, click on the link below to get to my on-demand video library. And also below is a link to register for one of my upcoming Dream Divina contemplative workshops, where we look at one of our dreams. Each person looks at one of their own dreams for its deeper meanings in a contemplative way. You can also find a link below to reach out to me if you're interested in working with me one-on-one to discover more about your own dreams and your spiritual journey and transformation. And you can also find a link below to become a patron of this channel and of my work, which I greatly appreciate. So until next time, may your dreams be fruitful and your journey be joyful.